Interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The most disrespected person in America is the black woman.
But still like dust. All right.
Hey guys, welcome back to Rooted with Aisha. And yes, it has been a minute since I did a video, had a conversation, or had any forms of communication with you all. And keep in mind, you all have been in my thoughts, you all have been in my prayers, and you all have been at my focus. And sometimes, and this is something that I learned the hard way, is sometimes, especially in life, things have to happen. Either it could be a loss of a job. It could either be deciding that the job that you're working for doesn't value you, appreciate you. Could it be school? Could be life, relationships. Could be just the obstacles that sometimes we give ourselves and sometimes the obstacles that we're faced with. And I'll just let you know that decompressing, stepping away from the social, and just stepping away completely is also an act of discipline and is also an act of spiritual respect for yourself. So that's something that we're going to be doing on this channel, where in addition to sometimes I may do my little midweek sabbaticals where I'm also pouring into me and making sure that my cup is full. But also, as I told all of you on previous videos, I am an online MSW student at Howard University. And I'll go more into my story time with Howard and my overall experience and what I'm doing. And I also do internships. Mine is virtual, but it's very much hands-on. I do clinicals throughout the week, and my placement supervisor, and I also have a podcast called Have Several Seats, where we talk about social issues. We talk about generational traumas, and then we also talk about real life scenarios and circumstances that we sometimes face, sometimes have, and even sometimes go through along the way. So we have that. I will be hosting all of those links in the description box because I do have a lot of projects lined up, y'all. Different things that I want to be featuring on Rooted with Aisha, interviews, topics, social issues about criminal justice, because for all of you who has been following this YouTube channel, my undergrad, I majored in criminal justice at Lynn University. So that's where my educational journey, college level, started, at Lynn University. So, overall, I was able to have a broader scope of education, which I'm so grateful to God for. So I do want to let all of you know that we're going to be tackling a lot of serious issues, and I'm also going to be incorporating a podcast that I will be sharing with all of you in a next broadcasting that will also house, it's going to be purposeful. Some pop culture topics will be discussed, a lot of serious discussions that I will house exclusively on Spotify, as well as on my Substack, that I will exclusively share some content to those channels and portals. Some will be shared on YouTube, but I do want to make sure that there's a platform that's uncensored. We can talk about everything and still have the level of transparency and respect to the platforms and communities involved. So look out for that on next publications that I will be doing. But today we're going to be talking about healing. generationally from trauma. And I'm going to get candid with y'all, and we're just going to do this in a 3-question situation. Because one, trauma comes in many forms. You're probably saying, girl, what I mean? Trauma could be physical, trauma could be emotional, trauma could be spiritual, trauma could be situational, circumstantial, trauma could be any form of trauma. It could be an offense against you or an offense committed. And many things could definitely influence that. But I want to talk about what is generational trauma, the signs, the patterns, and how to begin healing, because that's something that now more than ever as a society we really need to dive into, because it's more than just makeup ready, the superficial stuff. It's real. People are hurting out here, and that's why I really wanted to change the tune for Rooted with Aisha, because this is more than just a channel where we're talking about hair products, movies, shows, things that we have interest in. This is a channel where we're also going to be having real issues and candid conversations about life, because now more than ever, the world that we're living in, y'all, we need to be real. We need to be authentic and purposeful. Wait a minute. Yeah. We need to be authentic and purposeful. So, essentially, what is generational trauma? Generational trauma is a form of trauma that can impact an individual, a family, or a group of people. That can either be for individuals of color, can be trauma from the transatlantic slave trade, traumas of slavery, traumas of colonization, traumas of identity that is a question mark, traumas of loss of language, traumas of having to conform to Western life, and you pretty much are trying to find yourself in the midst of a culture that you're not fully native to ancestrally. And also traumas of sexual, domestic violence, abuse, substance abuse, verbal abuse, traumas of, being told that you're overweight, traumas of being bullied in your home or at school, or situational, circumstantial, societal. Traumas come in many forms. And sadly enough, there's a lot of outlets that many people decide to take out their trauma. Could be towards someone, could be towards oneself, or could be giving birth to it all over again, either in the form of assuming the patterns or housing a child, and that trauma is born again through that child. So there's many forms of generational traumas and how that can be created. And the signs of generational trauma can also be how someone thinks, how someone speaks, how someone feels about someone else, societal, their perception of communication, sometimes their perception of reality, or sometimes their perception of themselves and how they feel about themselves. And also in turn, how they feel about themselves can also be projected on others. So there's many forms of how we as individuals can also be the worst enemy of each other and to ourselves. And patterns, habitual, the continuation of it, and how to begin healing essentially starts when you're honest, and essentially starts when you allow yourself to go through that process. Now keep in mind, you're probably like, girl, how do you even start that? Well, for me, it didn't start right away. It was years. And I would honestly say for me, it helps that my mom gave me this space where I had that opportunity to actually be vulnerable, and I had that space of safety where the words that I say or the words that I think or how I'm developing is in a safe space, whereas not many people have that. So that way, some find safety in friends, some find safety in a cousin, or some find safety in another vessel that some may call it trauma bonding, which is you share a commonality of trauma, and some may call it having something in common, or some may call it finding your twin flame, or someone that sees you when others don't. So there's different forms of how trauma and how we can be counterproductive in many ways, but that's also there's a journey to that too, because some individuals we may trauma bond with, but sometimes they're there for that period in our lives, but they're not necessarily going to be there for the next phases of our lives. So that's definitely something that over the years I've learned. And sometimes I would say that back in the day, when I was a little younger, I often thought of individuals where if I didn't get a good vibe, or if I didn't see that's a relationship, not personally, but if I didn't see, and not intimately, but I mean like could be family. In my case, it was family members, not my siblings, but just family members that we once had in our lives. I also developed the tendency of, I see you, where if it's an attitude or if it's a behavior that I don't agree with or I just did not like, I instantly writ the person off. Not saying that I judged them for what they did. Maybe I did, just a little bit. But I just did not feel that their existence was going to take me to the next chapter of healing, and that they weren't helping me. So ever since then, I've been that way, where if an individual is not helping me to become a better person, depending on who they are, I may give them a chance, but I won't give them my trust on a level where I feel like, God forbid, the ship is sinking. I need you to save my life. No, I'm going to get to a lifeboat, or I'm going to swim until I get to land. So that's also another thing. And that also segues me into question number 1, is what stories or experiences from your family history reflects patterns that can be linked to generational traumas. And this is also time to encourage reflection on family dynamics and inherited emotional patterns. Because I know that for me, inherited emotional patterns from my maternal side of the family were very fiery in terms of we know what we want, bold, intuitive, discerning, but yet there is a weakness of feeling like we belong, feeling safe, or needing to feel safety. And sometimes you can find that safety in the wrong person. And also the need to feel secure, and also the need to feel grounded. But then again, you also have to look at the generation before. Were they given the freedom to feel? Were they given the freedom to feel grounded? So that's something that I want, especially Gen Zs and millennials, to not segregate themselves. That this is your group, that's my group, and to really look at themselves as one. Because at this point, at this age that we're living in, being a millennial and being a Gen Z is nothing to wear as a badge of honor. We should just be happy that we were born and that we're here, because at the end of the day, we're all facing the same struggles. It doesn't matter if you're a boomer, Gen X, Gen Z, millennial, same struggle, different generation, different era. The struggles just evolve with the era. And this is not to blame the next or past generation, because keep in mind, the past generation didn't control the government. There may have been influences in the government that was a part of the Gen X or boomer generation, but you also have to keep in mind, many people advocated, some were the corruptors, or some were corrupted. So there's many factors to look at that, but playing the blame game and pointing fingers doesn't get us anywhere, really. So I would say that from my experiences with family history, I would say that addressing those generational traumas of needing to be loved or feel loved was definitely something that I had to overcome, because I know that as a woman, that would not have been beneficial for me long term, and that would have really made my overall experience not in the best way possible, and not in the best formatting to produce anything that was wholesome. Though life is a journey, but I also learned that sometimes we can also sabotage ourselves, but also put ourselves in a situation that can also be to our detriment. So I learned that through my family experiences and patterns of trust on my paternal side, of trust, of also imitating one's environment to make friends. Friends was something that on my paternal side was a need, and also belonging. These are different patterns that when I was younger, I definitely exhibited. Because at one point I felt like the oddball out. I did not have a lot of friends in elementary. I had maybe a few, but I felt like I needed more, or I felt like I needed to be in every social space. But over time, as I grew, I'm like, oh, I love my own company. Not saying that I'm opposed to socializing, because I'm a social butterfly. Believe me, I could be in any room and talk to anybody. But I would honestly say, I no longer have that craving. And that is something that happens when you're aware of your patterns, but when you're also given knowledge and information about your other halves. Could be your mom, could be your father. So that's why I would highly recommend the next generation, or the generation prior, to please be open and honest with your children. It cannot all be the negative stuff. Oh, they were a deadbeat, or they left. That's kind of obvious. We want to know more. We want to know how you got here. We want to know why things are the way that they are. And I want to thank God that my mom educated me on what led to certain experiences, and what she did to get out of them, and also who my father is, and also tying that back to who I am. Because another part of healing from generational trauma, and what really started the process for me, is no longer being ashamed. I was a child in the matter. Sometimes you wish that you had like that Sherman Klump thing where you can extract your DNA and just take that part out that you don't want. But then that's the part that probably holds the creativity. That's the part that probably holds the goofiness, what makes you different. And I'm like, man, if only I could just take just a little bit of that and then put it back in there, and take the part that I don't like out. But that also goes back to being ungrateful for your life. And that took me a while to get there, okay? That took me a while to get to that place of fulfillment where I was like, God, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here, no matter what the circumstance was. And now help me on my journey, because I was so afraid of being like my father and carrying his trauma and just being attached to that. But that was literally me blaming myself for existing when it was not my fault as to what caused him his trauma. All I can do is focus on my healing of my own trauma that I felt and that I internalized and I took ownership of. So that's how my trauma started the healing process. And recognizing the signs of generational trauma in yourself, that goes back to what I talked about in recognizing the signs. What I took from my mom, what I got from my father. But that is more than just saying, okay, I got blue eyes, I got brown eyes, I got curly hair, I got my height, I got my lips, I got my nose, I got everything from my mama, from my daddy. That's far beyond the physical. Recognizing the signs of generational trauma means recognizing the tendencies, the patterns. Do you lie more? Do you tell the truth more? Well, we hope. We can all hope and pray we all tell the truth. Are you quick to anger? Are you quick to apologize? Are you quick to be the funny person in the room? Or are you the reader? Or are you someone who is the encourager? Or are you someone that has that ability to be a magnet where everyone wants to be around you and you don't even have to try hard? So just these different tendencies, or just, are you the liar? Are you someone that has the ability to manipulate people into doing something that they shouldn't do? So just those tendencies can also be characteristics, patterns, or habitual attributes that we do inherit, or we also do emulate what we see in reality. Because if you see someone steal from someone else and you don't know that it's wrong, you're going to think that it's okay. Or if you see someone cheat on a test, they don't get caught, but they got a good grade, you're going to be like, oh, easy way to get an A. Copy what Susie Q is doing in the front desk, and then hope and pray I don't get caught. Then the day you get caught, you're like, man, why couldn't I just be my own individual? All of that happens. All of those experiences. And that also piggybacks to my final question. Question number 3 is, what role does storytelling and sharing lived experiences play in breaking cycles of trauma and fostering generational healing? And this is also the highlight of the power of narrative in therapy recovery, because in trauma recovery, because we can't recover from a trauma if we don't know that it exists. So sometimes I'm talking to you. If you're like me, or if you are you, and no one sometimes is readily to tell you their story. And if you're like me, that someone, by the grace of God, told you their story. But if you're having an experience where someone is not telling you health records, your medical history, your psychological history of your family, your ancestry, and you have a griot locally to you, you have an aunt, an uncle that remotely is okay, a father or a mother that's existing, or you're able to look up your own family tree or whatever sources that you have, I challenge you to please be vocal, because now more than ever, we are living in a time where we are having generational traumas rebirthing in the next generation of children, rebirthing in the trades, the signs, the patterns, the overall auras. It's rebirthing, it's reduplicating itself. And I cannot stress you the importance of healing what you did not know, healing what you did not do, and finding freedom in who you are, meaning the person that is going to get to the other side of loving your own skin that you have. Because once upon a time, I used to be vegan. I used to be a little smaller. But sister girl, since the pandemic, I'm very shapely by ways of my mom's ancestry. And my father's side has, they have shape to them. But I would honestly say my goal is definitely to focus on nutrition. My goal is definitely to maintain a good solid weight and not to be over for my height, because I'm only 5'3.5", y'all. So I can't go overboard now. Sis loves to eat, but I'm not a breakfast person. I may dabble in lunch, but I'm really a dinner person. So I found healthy ways, either if it's oatmeals, well, take it back, I haven't had oatmeal in a minute. May have a bagel, maybe some coffee for breakfast, or cereal. My mom got me into parfaits. I used to do that back in the day, but I fell off the bandwagon. So, no judgment, y'all. No judgment. And shakes, y'all. I do meal replacement shakes for breakfast, sometimes for lunch if I'm not hungry. But I'm going to get into all of that on this channel, y'all. I'm going to get into what I do health-wise. I'm also going to get into what I've been incorporating in my vitamin pocket to help me during that time of the month, the products that I use. I'm gonna get back into doing some wholesome product reviews for y'all because we need to get back into it. But to get back to our topic in closing is that healing generational trauma starts when you're honest and starts when you're bold to ask that one question. Girl, who was this dude? Or mom or aunt or dad, who was mom or aunt, who was my dad, like who was my family. And some of us, we may use ancestry. Some of us may talk to a local person or the neighbor that knew that person, that knew that person, that knew that person. So sometimes in life you may not get to talk to the source, and sometimes in life you may never get that closure. But what I want you to do is that if you never get that closure, if you never get that apology, and if you never get that conclusion, have that peace in knowing that you're living your life for you. You're living your life to go on a spiritual journey to finding the one true creator, but you're also living your life for the next generation that you are to produce and to create, if it is within your intention to create, or if it's within your intention to adopt or foster. You have there's many options to have a family these days, but most importantly speaking, before you do that, let's do some self work. Let's do some homework, ladies and gentlemen, or whichever identity that you identify as. Because at the end of the day, we are here to support one another. We're here to love on one another, but we're also here to focus on our healing. Because now more than ever, we cannot help the next person successfully, and we're still having our own internal issues. And most importantly speaking, we cannot be blinded to the issues that are happening in our world and think that it's just us in this whole nucleus having problems. All parts of the world are having issues, and we have to address them because that's also connected to us, because we're one human race. So we're going to be getting into more topics like that. So please, 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 if y'all have not already, if y'all have been just passing the garden but not putting down roots, please put down some roots and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any videos that I publish or podcast episodes or discussions that we get into, because we're going to be getting rooted, y'all. There's a podcast that I can't wait to share with all of you. So I'm so excited because we're going to be having guests. We're going to be having thought-provoking individuals that have definitely studied in the field and majored in many things and have life and lived experiences. So y'all, we're getting into it. But to kick off our week, this is the healing of generational trauma week, y'all. That's the topic of discussion, generational trauma for week 1. Then week 2, we're going to get into authentic living, how to break free from people pleasing and perfectionism. Oh yeah, y'all, it's going down, because that's something that I had to pull away from, and I'm still having to pull away from, because y'all, the tendency pops up, but it's definitely a reminder to really come back. And this next phase of my journey is definitely going to be focused on myself, but focused on making collaborations, but also focused on, feeding the seeds that God has given me and helping those that I love on their journeys too. So I thank all of you for tuning in. I know that y'all are like, girl, you kept us for almost 30 minutes. Well, this is week 1, y'all. This is going to give y'all more than enough to eat until the next time we pull up to the table. So don't judge me. So I'm a hot mess, y'all. But y'all going to enjoy this hot mess, because we got more of this stuff we have more seeds to drop, soil to turn over. But I'm going to see y'all on a next episode of Rooted with Aisha. Please stay safe and be well. Be wise with your decisions. Be discerning of your choices, and be kind along the way. Stay safe, y'all. See y'all in the next episode. Bye.